but you're still making like $1,200 a month. So I wouldn't let it people get in your head. Just rock it till you know you can't do it anymore. Because
Right.
it's your life, it's not their life. And I tell Joe this all the time: if it's just life or social relationships or whatever, you're gonna have outside factors. Everybody's gonna try to tell you you can't do it. They're gonna give
Hmm.
you their 2 cents. They're gonna give you, hey, this is why I think you should move on to something else. Society in general doesn't like to see have. It's very few times or even moments where society wants people to have success. Everybody wants somebody to not be above them. They always want to be at the same level. So if you start progressing, they're going to come up with their reason of why you should stop, so they don't feel like you're moving on and progressing ahead of them in life.
It's
Because you're
actually funny you say that. Yeah, keep going. I'm sorry.
so the biggest thing I've noticed is the biggest critics you're ever going to have are your family members.
Hmm.
Because they're the ones that they do it out of love, but they do it unintentionally because they want you to be safe and they don't want you to risk your future or risk something. They want you to be financially secure. But if it's something that you're passionate about, you just have to do what's best for you and know in your heart and your mind that there is a risk that comes with it. But in the long run, it could be worth it. But even if it doesn't end up happening, because there's millions of people just like me and you who have aspirations to play in the big leagues under the big lights and the show and everything. But a lot of the time, just statistically, it's not in the cards for us. But you got to give it that shot until you absolutely know it's never going to happen. But you can look back and go, I did things and spent time with people that I would have never experienced if I hadn't kept going and pushing myself. Like I can say proudly that I played with a guy that was on the 2015 Mets World Series roster, who knows DeGrom, knows Noah Syndergaard, was there when they lost, unfortunately, but was, able to have those conversations with them. I got to face a guy that was in the big leagues who's a potential Hall of Famer in 5 years, Brandon Phillips, if he decides he
Yep.
doesn't want to go back in the league. So did I make it to the show? No. Did I get to experience it almost by playing with these guys who are still playing, getting re-signed and going back into major league rotations? Absolutely. But did I have my people telling me you need to stop, you need to not even pursue this? Yes. But I rode it till the wheels fell off, and I can look back and going, I didn't go where I wanted to go, but I went farther than anybody thought I would have, and I got to experience things, and now I can hold, like, proudly with a smile on my face say I went as far as I could physically go, and I got to experience things that most people would dream of, talking to major leaguers, having a casual conversation like we're buddies, shagging, BP with them and just having a good time. So
Right. Well, that's. I mean, it's that I'm so happy you said all of that. Pretty much. I mean, it's cool to hear that stuff, and obviously, you don't want your mindset to stop. And you could get that potential break. Like you said, it literally takes one person to see you, and no matter what level you're at, that's what I love about baseball. No matter where you're at, if you're good enough, someone's gonna find you, and that's how it works. And so, that's where I have to go in. Like I just threw a bullpen with Joe yesterday, and it was great. It was a good time, and looked good. It's just working on my splitter and whatnot. That was my big issue, but everything was there, and it's cool to see progression. But you always have the naysayers. Started out in high school when for me personally, when I was in high school, I always just said I want to be in the league and MLB and whatnot. And of course, you get made fun of for all that stuff. That's such a far shot because as a freshman in high school, you say that because you're excited and but that's the thing. And then you get made fun of for it, and then you keep going up. And to me, I never cared about that stuff because I always felt I was I could get there. And so even this year when I had something professionally now. A little stint in it so far and hopefully it continues to grow now. It was cool to, even have that little bit of a little relief and then having people be like, shit, he's kind of doing something, even though I didn't say anything. I let other people say something on social media or something, like give me a shout or anything. I didn't want to say anything. And then, I just heard recently my friend tell me like there's some people back home making fun of me because they didn't think they were like I know way better people than him and how he made it in them doesn't make sense. I was like those people are the people who don't reach out to me. I don't talk to them. They're just gonna be a hater, and that's fine. I love that stuff. Like that's what I think that's one thing that motivates me because I hate because I want to just, like I want to make it, be on TV, pitch a World Series, pitch a great game and win the World Series, and then have me on TV, and there are people at the bars be like, "Oh, I knew that kid," and then I come back home and they're like, "Hey, you remember me?" And I'm like, "Who?" Like that would be
Yeah,
like that'd be so funny.
who was it? I think it was Riff Raff. He goes, "I want to pop off and act like I don't know nobody." That's how I wanted to be for the longest time. But just act like come back home and be like, "Yeah, I completely proved all you wrong, make you all feel
Well,
stupid." But no,
well, you still kind of did though. I mean, that's the thing. Like, it's we made it to a level where it's considered professional. You get paid for it, and that's a cool part of it. But it's the next step of trying to get to that point, and it's a journey in and of itself. But that's where you can't, you had to, like, I knew this right from the beginning because it's such a long shot, but you got to work your ass off, and that's why you have all these other plans to try to make it. And it's a scary thing. It's stressful. It's fucking crazy, but it happens. But it's it's a normal thing, it's a random life. I will say that.
well, as long as you're taking steps, like every year you make another step or move forward, then just keep going because eventually you're gonna you know, an inch or a foot adds up at the end of the day.
Hmm.
You don't have to always be like, oh, I went from a low end independent league to like affiliated ball. No, if you went like I went from a low end independent league to a high end independent league, hey, you made a step in the right direction. Keep going until you stop making steps. Then you need to start reevaluating your situation because then you're not just affecting yourself, you might be affecting your future and financial situation of living and this and that. And that's where I had to make the evaluation of like, hey, I'm actually making a lot of steps backwards. And if you even ask Joe this, he said something to me that resonated really well. He goes, I've beaten on every single door. And this is what he said to me. He goes, you've beaten on every single door. You've driven through the night from Texas to West Virginia that drive like 12 plus hours. And I made it within like 15. And I slept in the back of my car in Arkansas for 2 hours and got back up and drove to West Virginia to make a road trip. So I got to the stadium and signed the contract and jumped on the bus. So like he's like, you've done everything you can physically, emotionally, and financially do. It's just time to make that decision of like, is this financially making sense? Are you gonna be okay? If you don't, are you blowing all your money trying to make this happen? Are you spending it on hotels? Are you spending it on food? And then when at the end of the season, are you even out of money to get an apartment?
Hmm.
So like, but as long as you're making steps, don't stop. So, yeah, I hit that peak and I had those people in high school saying, you're never gonna play professionally, you're never gonna play for the Atlanta Braves, my hometown team. Granted, did I play for them? No, but I played at a level that was the same or better than a lot of dudes that are in the Braves organization, rookie ball, single A, this
Hmm.
and that. So I use that as my fuel. Just so you were saying in high school, you had those people that doubted you and this and that. I use it as my fuel to get me there.
Hmm.
You're younger than me again, so just keep, as long as you're making steps forward, keep going. Don't stop. I hit
But
the end of my road, and that's why I had to make that decision. But yeah, I use that as my fuel every day. I woke up, I was like, it's cold outside. I don't want to go throw in this 30-degree weather. Use that fuel that with those kids in high school were saying of, hey, you can't do this. I woke up, I was like, I'm gonna go out there and I'm gonna prove them wrong because I'm gonna go out there and throw this bucket of balls into the net, because nobody wants to come throw with me. It's too cold. I need to get my work and I need to do this on my own. I don't need anybody else to make me successful.
I actually have videos of that even through college because I transferred to Penn State. I went to a branch campus of Penn State's, and then I went up to Penn State itself. Went to the walk on, and it just didn't work out. I looked, they were into me. I looked good. It's just there was issues where I couldn't join the team, and so I was like, all right, I'm doing this all by myself. And it's like I have videos dating back to then, even till last year. It didn't snow here yet in PA, but last year and years prior, there's literally ice on the field, and I'm throwing in 5 inches or 5 feet of snow. It's like I lost a lot of baseballs. I kept going back just because I'm really anal about missing baseballs. Like I kept coming back every day until I found them. I
Yeah,
did. It was
shocker, you lost a white ball in white snow, right?
who would have thought?
Who would have thought a white ball in snow would have been easy to spot? Nah,
But
there was last year. I'm assuming you heard about the snowpocalypse in Texas last year, how it got like
no.
really cold and like
Oh wait,
yeah.
yeah.
So I was in the middle of that in Fort Worth. I was living, like I said, I went to TCU last year and did a whole year of grad school during COVID, but I was living in the middle of it, and it actually got out to like -1 outside, but the wind chill made it feel like -20. And I'm not making this up. Like it got so cold and so windy and so like icy outside that there was a break in the snow, and one day, and I went to the field and just started throwing, and the net had actually like frozen solid, and the ball was trampoline offing it, and like I speak. So I say the baseball and snow like jokingly, but I lost a baseball or two because they would, instead of like hitting the net and dropping, they're trampolining off me to go in the snow. So I'm sitting there going, shit, I'm losing baseballs everywhere. So I stopped, and to get my throwing in, like I started throwing snowballs. No, I'm not playing.
No
Like
way.
I just started making snowballs. I'm like, I'm in a heavy coat, so I'm like already can't even make a full motion. I'm just throwing snowballs, just trying to throwing them against a brick wall, because I'm like, what else am I gonna do without losing baseballs? But yeah, I was by myself, and people were like, "It's too cold." Was that the smartest decision on my part? Probably not, but you're on a program. You got to do what you got to do. So I'm out there throwing baseballs in the net in the wind when it's like feeling like 23 degrees. I'm all layered up, throwing by myself with a bucket, or throwing snowballs against the wall, trying to make it happen, because you got to stay on that schedule and that work.
Isn't it funny? It's like in those moments, you stop and think, you're like, wow, I make it. My life could be a crazy movie. Because
Oh yeah, I'm sitting there going, to Rookie Part 2. This is gonna be it right here. He was a lefty. He made it. He threw his hard. I'm like, I got a shot here. And then there was one time I get back in my apartment after doing this, and I go, what am I doing with my life? Is this really it? Am I out here throwing snowballs into a brick wall trying to emulate, making it to the show? If this is a movie, good God, I want a new director.
Did you really off topic as I'm talking to you, do you know who you remind me of, like what you look like?
I
Do,
want to hear this.
do you know have you heard his name, Trace McSorley from Penn State? The quarterback?
I've heard the name. I can't. Is he like he's like QB1, right? He's the starting quarterback.
He was no, I don't know if he was on QB1, but
No.
he got
I'm saying like he's the starting quarterback for Penn State, right?
he was when he graduated. He was during Saquon Barkley's little era.
Yeah.
But he was drafted to the Ravens, and now he's on the Cardinals in Arizona. So it just made me think about that, because I was like, shit. I was like, you're in Arizona now. Now you look like Trace McSorley.
So funny story is, so actually after college, like right after I graduated, I actually took a break from ball. I was mentally and physically just burned out. I said I need to step away from the game, and I actually took like 5 months off, and I was a bartender at a nightclub in Atlanta, and
Yeah.
I have my mixologist license. Like I bartended for like over a year and a half. I've done like everything you could pretty much do in the bartending business. And every night I worked, everybody would come and say, "Hey, you know what you look like?" And I'm like, "Who do I look like?" And they go, "You look like a young Matt Damon. You look like a young Matt Damon."
You
And it
do.
happened, and it happens now. Like I was at work, and everybody's like, you look like. I'm like, don't say a word. Let me guess, young Matt Damon. Like, oh my God, yes. I'm just like, so when you said that, I was waiting for it. You look like a young Matt Damon. I was waiting for it.
Well,
I was
let's
about
cut the tape. Let's cut the tape. I'm gonna say you look like a young Matt. Oh my gosh, that's
to.
super. When I was at Penn State, I used to have girls like take selfies with me or buy me a shot, or or drinks or whatever, or offer to buy me it. But it was because Kirk Cousins from the Vikings. People say I look like him, But I'm like, no, he looks like me.
Dude,
Yeah, I was like, no,
you look
I was
like
like,
Kirk
he
Cousins.
he looks like me. Let's get that straight because I had more fantasy points than him, guaranteed.
What you need to do now is next Halloween you need to buy a Kirk Cousins jersey, but you need to buy a Washington football team one, and you need to walk into it and scream, "Do you like that?" Did you ever see when he did that after a game?
Whoa.
The press
Yeah.
asked him. He's like,